I do still have my batch over there. Yep.
Kia ora tātou, nau mai hoki mai, ki te whare nei o te kaunira tai o ki Waita. Mi atu ngā kōrua, hiri ko tā mai, I tēnei wā, kia koe James Dale ko Richard, nei te mi atu kia koe, hara mai waka kotahi, pai aki ki te ia koutou. Welcome you both today, James and Richard, to come to provide councillors with an overview of the role of waka kotahi in both regional and public transport. Giles, did you like to introduce anything, or just straight over to James and Richard? Okay, kia ora James.
Kia ora, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for having us, and thank you very much for being generous with your time. Look, there is a presentation. I will run through it once we've run through parts of it once we've got it up on the screen. But really, the purpose of today is to get to the guts of your questions. You know, because I'm sure you've got interesting and detailed questions, and it's in that dialogue that we make the most of your time. Do we have a presentation? Oh, excellent. Look, by way of introduction, my name's James Cagle. I'm the Director of Regional Relationships for NZTA Waka Kotahi for the West Coast, Canterbury, Otago and Southland. And with me today is Richard Osborne, Regional Manager for System Design for the same, no, actually not for the same area. You cover the entire South Island, don't you, Richard? He does. NZTA is a complex organisation. Not differently complex to a regional council. We cover many roles and functions. It's very easy to see us in only one or two of them, and over your time as councillors you will probably encounter us in many, but the one that you probably encounter us the most over is as funder. You know, we are the Crown's principal land transport funder. We do other activities. We join you in planning around public transport, and I'm sure we'll get into that. We manage and operate state highway, we build state highway projects, but most of my remarks today, I think, will really come to you from the position of investor. And it's important to understand, as I know some of you already do, we are a Crown entity. We are a Crown agent, which means in the span of Crown entities, we sit on the spectrum closest to government. So we're not independent the way the Commerce Commission is, or semi-judicial Crown entities are. We are as close to government as you can be by being a Crown entity, but we're not so close that we're a government department. And that puts some tension in the relationship between ourselves and the Crown by design. We have an independent board, and that independent board has independent functions set out in statute. But the most important thing to understand about our role is that we are directed to give effect to Crown policy. We don't have independence beyond that injunction to give effect, although, somewhat strangely, we make independent judgments in how to give effect to Crown policy. And when we get slides, the most important method of giving that direction comes to us by way of a document usually issued every 3 years, which is the Government Policy Statement on Land Transport. The Ministry of Transport does issue us direction outside of the GPS, but many of my conversations with councillors around this table and around other tables in the South Island ends up in a reference back at the Government Policy Statement on Land Transport. It is our job to give effect to the Crown policy that is set out in that statement, and we are currently within a period running 2024 to 2027, looking ahead into the next funding period, which begins the middle of next year, 2027. And while the current government policy statement is arguably a 10-year document, so covers that period because it runs 24 to 34, we are all having conversations in anticipation of the issuing of a new government policy statement any time now, but not finalised until early next year, which will set the Crown policy under which we invest for 27 and onwards. My remarks today will be couched in what is in the current GPS, but I'll try to give you guidance around what might change, what might not, because we've seen over the years quite a lot of variability in what government policy statements control and direct, and how they direct us to act, and how they constrain you, because very clearly if we can or cannot invest to support you, it narrows or widens your options. One of the things that the government policy statement on land transport does is it looks at the likely revenue we are going to receive as an agency over the 3-year funding period, and that revenue is largely but not exclusively made up of fuel excise duty and road user charges. And so excellent, we've got the presentation. Go to yep, perfect. And it divides the revenue into activity classes, literally just buckets of similar activity that can be grouped. They are entirely the creation of the minister in terms of the like pools that wants to see activity reflected in, and divides the revenue that we are likely to spend or receive and spend over that 3-year period into those activity classes. And so you can see, if you can see through those appalling colours and tiny writing, you can see the activity classes that currently exist reflected there. There are, for what it is worth, 3 activity classes for the state highway, 3 activity classes that fund activity on local roads for road controlling authorities like the Christchurch City Council. There are 2 public transport activity classes, 1 for services and 1 for capital infrastructure. There's 1 for safety, 1 for the rail network, and a relatively small activity in cycling. The activity class that you are most but not exclusively concerned with is the public transport services activity class. The numbers that are in there are an expression of the mechanism I talked about. They are our board's attempt to meet the instruction of the government policy statement, where the minister has set a minimum level of investment in that activity class and a maximum level of investment across all of those activity classes. And we have to, as an agency, work out how to make all of that balance up across all of them and still give effect to the qualitative outcomes that the government is seeking by way of the policy statement. And it is worth saying, if you're not already aware, that the difference, the change among the changes you saw quite dramatically between this current government policy statement and its predecessor almost 3 years ago was actually a reasonably significant constraining of the available money for investment in the public transport activity classes, in order, for what it is worth, to send investment into the state highway improvements activity class and the 4 maintenance activity classes for state highways and local roads. That was an explicit policy choice of the government of the day, the minister of the day, and it is simply our job to give effect to that. But I recognise that has quite significantly constrained the activity that is fundable by this council, because you are looking often to us to subsidise your activity by way of our funding assistance rate. So that's the activity classes. You're welcome, by the way, through the chair, to butt in with questions, or we can leave questions to the end. It entirely depends on how you...
We'll go through the presentation and then questions at the end.
Okay, excellent. So look, I did just want to, and this ought to be fairly easy and obvious to you guys by now, but I did just want to touch on the major pieces of the jigsaw puzzle as we see them with regard to particularly Christchurch public transport. We can talk about Timaru and other locations if you want, but I wanted to recognise, because time is getting on, that we are still largely in Christchurch in the position of rolling out an agreed investment approach, or an agreed set of investments, under the banner of PT Futures. Okay, it is a business case that went through our processes, that went through the relevant local authorities, that went through the regional council at the end of 2020. And it forms the basis of, and forms our judgment on future investment in the Christchurch public transport system. And we always largely talk about PT Futures in those 3 pillars that you can see represented by those coloured boxes. There is the foundations part of PT Futures, the core routes, if you will. There's the rest of the network. And then, and we will come to it in more detail, then there is the future-focused part of the investment, which is a significant upgrade to the network by way of mass rapid transit. I'm not going to run through a lot of these slides on PT Futures, but they're there if you would. Look, PT Futures was a really robust business case process at the time. It's been through an awful lot of consultation. All of the investment that has been undertaken since, I think, has borne out the base case that was there in PT Futures. But we are still some years away, really, and some significant investment away from realising the vision that PT Futures laid out in terms of a future public transport network for Christchurch. No, I can't. I'll get you to run through them, Richard. We can dwell on the outcomes that PT Futures sought, but they are broad and many. They are, from a customer point of view, obviously very useful. But I think it is really, really important to recognise that investment in public transport, particularly in Christchurch, serves all transport users in Christchurch. Whether you use the public transport network or not, you are benefiting from investment in public transport largely because it is reducing the demand on the transport network for other motor vehicles. Let's skip the map. Right, I think it is just worth running through the sorts of investments that you can see, because a lot of the requests that have come to us and will continue to come to us over coming years, they are just about picking off parts of this list. So primarily, we have investment in those core routes, the single-digit routes, and increasing the frequency and reliability of those routes. And we're part way through doing there. We've had some good work. We're working closely with officers now on the request to increase the frequency of the number 1 and the number 5. Worth saying, I am a user of the number 7 and greatly value it's increased to 10-minute frequency. So thank you very much. They are the secondary core routes. They aren't to be forgotten. They serve really important connector functions and help people get to those key activity centres and get on to those major routes if they're undertaking significant journeys. And the other issue that comes up very regularly in Christchurch and its wider set is the investment in those direct connections, which is the third bullet. That is the servicing to the towns around Christchurch, the Lincolns, the Rollistons, the Rangi-Oras, the Kaya Boys. There's significant growth in the periphery around Christchurch, and those services are well used and under extreme pressure, and there is great demand for further investment in them. It is entirely in line with public transport futures. And then there is work to branch out beyond those major routes. But it is worth noting that it isn't just a service uplift that PT Futures envisages. There is significant investment required on the capital side of things, on the infrastructure side of things, to ensure frequent and reliable services are able to be obtained. It isn't simply a matter of putting on more buses. I am preaching to the choir, I know. I'm telling you things you already know. Forgive me, but I want to have made the point. We must invest in making bus travel reliable in Christchurch by making it easy for the bus to travel. We have just completed our portion of investment in significant bus lanes on Hallswell Road. Christchurch City Council is rolling into a similar project further up the road on Lincoln Road that will hopefully complete that bus corridor all the way from the city down in that southwestern spine. That is exactly the sort of investment that is envisaged. We continue to get questions about why this is important, but you cannot escape the fundamental truth. It is about making sure that buses are reliable and frequent, and that you're not over-investing in the capital on buses because the bus is stuck in traffic. It needs to be able to move clearly. There are other capital investments on the side that benefit bus users in terms of real-time information, reliable, safe, clean, nice bus stops and those sorts of things. All of these are envisaged in PT Futures. And then, look, coming to the prize in front of us in the future, and it often this is where conversations go quite quickly, and we skip over the necessary investment in foundations and rest of network. It is impossible to escape the potential that we have in Christchurch to invest in mass rapid transit. We have done significant work with yourselves and with the City Council, and to be fair, with the districts in preceding years to get the case to where it is today. And the slides that you've got in this presentation are largely drawn from the indicative business case that we collectively worked on in the previous triennium, so up to 2024. Fundamentally, mass rapid transit in Christchurch, as we understand it through the indicative business case, is about effectively investing in the uplift of what is currently part of Route 1 and part of Route 5. That is to say, the route that runs from Papanui Road into the city, from the city down Riccarton Road, at its fullest extent out to Hornby and up to Belfast. And that really is your key mass rapid transit spine that we can see in the future of Christchurch. And there is no escaping it. Such a system, such an investment would transform Christchurch. It will be the next city shaping project in Christchurch. It's certainly the largest Crown investment in prospect for Christchurch post-quake. Now that we're through the big Crown anchor projects post-quake, we've done significant public consultation as part of the indicative business case. It's certainly a requirement of our investment case approach. You'll often see that referred to in the name used at the time. That's to say, it has been an exceptionally well-regarded piece of public engagement. It had very good uptake from the people of Christchurch and has actually just won significant international engagement awards in the United States. But the public engagement we got through Hui Mai was entirely an endorsement of the approach that is outlined in the indicative business case, and a really, really solid foundation in which to move on to the next stages of mass rapid transit investment. Fundamentally, you can see the takeaways there. The people of Christchurch who engaged with Hui Mai saw significant benefits accruing from mass rapid transit. Surprisingly, there were not large trade-offs identified. People want to see significant investment in public transport alongside investment in safe walking and cycling, alongside investment for in place and space to make it easier to get around their communities. In terms of next steps, one of the challenges that has faced the city with the current government policy statement on land transport and the reallocation of funding away from public transport futures is worth acknowledging. It has constrained our ability as an agency to invest significantly in taking the mass rapid transit case forward. We are still working closely with parties, but the lead party on mass rapid transit at the moment, albeit with significant involvement from yourselves and other agencies, is currently Christchurch City Council. And that is largely because the next stage is about identifying the details of that route. I outlined where it would go, but exactly how it would fit in the road corridor, where would you place stations, what are the land impacts of those sorts of things, so that we can work towards effectively a route, the protection of the route by way of designation, and potentially then property acquisition, and then proceed into the fundamental choice that everyone can see in front of us, which would be the identification of the type of vehicle that would be used. Are we actually talking in Christchurch about bus rapid transit? Are we talking about light rail? Plenty of people have a view. Just to assure you that that choice is well and truly before us. It is not a choice that is yet locked in. Having said that, for those who have travelled or are interested, fundamentally for Christchurch, it is likely to be a choice between the system that Brisbane is rolling out, which is a bus rapid transit system, or the system that Sydney is rolling out, which is a light rail system. That's what we effectively have a choice for in our future. One has higher capital cost in terms of building it, but larger capacity at the top end. The other relatively cheaper, and these are enormous sums of money, so it is a relative statement, relatively cheaper to roll out, but slightly lower capacity at the top end. As I say, away from away from getting there. And once, to the point that I know will be raised around the table, once we are through the next stages of business casing on mass rapid transit, and we can roll out the initial route, then the city will be faced with questions about where else. At what point in the city's development it makes sense to develop the line that connects into the main line? At what point, how does it integrate with the existing public transport system? That by that time we have significantly upgraded from the way it stands today. And at what point do you reach the tipping points where it makes sense to move from bus based on those core routes into a mass rapid transit system in those parts of the city as well? But there is no escaping the fundamental, as I said, for mass rapid transit in Christchurch, that once we invest in a system like this, you will see it change the shape of Christchurch, because it will, if it follows anything like any of the experience anywhere else in the world, it will attract growth around and to it and from it. And that's, honestly, that is really all I wanted to run through it at great pace. That is the fundamental framework that we look at public transport in Christchurch with you through. I know that there are likely to be questions around funding, both at probably the micro project level and at the macro. I'm more than happy to talk about questions about regional PT, regional public transport, or the next government policy statement. Questions you might have about the funding environment now or into the future. I'll tell you what I can say, and I'll also tell you if I can't say what we know. But
kia ora, James. Thank you for that good presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions. Andrea, and then followed by Genevieve.
Cheers. Thank you. I've got two areas. I wanted to know how you feel about and how much influence you have on when they just keep rolling out more greenfield developments farther and farther away. Because where I come from, New York City, 3 million people a day on the thing, and they still can't make a profit because they've just gone way too far out. So tell me what kind of influence do you have on keeping it tight?
Strictly little. The agency, for example, is I can't even remember whether we use the language of affected party for fast track, but we are involved in fast track applications, an interested party. So we provide evidence at the early stages in terms of the impacts of fast track proposals. And honestly, the reason I'm focusing on fast track is that's the game right now, and there are a lot of them in a lot of the country. I would observe that New Zealand, and this is saying nothing new, ministers, everyone are on record here. New Zealand has not done a particularly good job of integrating land use planning and transport over many, many years, and I think that is the impact that you're talking about. Purely from a transport point of view, it would be great to be able to be more tightly integrated. I think that is one of the things that lies behind the change that you see at central government in terms of the merger of our ministry with other, let's call them like-minded ministries in a much more place and connection nexus, which I think we should welcome. But we're a long way from seeing what that might play out like in terms of impact on policy and how that might integrate.
The other part is I read that vulnerability study on South Island roads, and in the summary it says collaboration is the key to reduce our risk and vulnerability, and now we're going to do a reform. How do we navigate this with these TAs out there? I mean, have you got any ideas about how the collaboration piece can be really put to the front?
The land transport system is not simple. And look, I've focused remarks today on public transport. I do have to acknowledge that the Regional Council plays a significant role in the land transport system aside from public transport. Land transport envisages everything being fed through a regional collaborative exercise and then up to the national exercise, and the Regional Transport Committee, which is a committee of this council, which I sit on, plays a key role in the collaboration as it exists today. I'm not sure I can or should be drawn on what the future might look like, because it is largely unknown, but it is collaboration by knowledge and information sharing, by the exercises that we go through to pull together our transport plans to understand the mutual risk and collective risk, where are the vulnerabilities in the system. And things like the report that you talk about, I think, are examples of the collaboration rather than the absence of it. It can always be improved, but I actually think for the system that we operate, we do a pretty good job of collectively managing that risk.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
Kia ora, Andrew. Thank you for that. Over to you, Genevieve.
That's me. I'm going back to activity classes and the real disproportionate amount of money per different thing. I'm just wondering, like, I might as well tease it out here. With regards to the prevention of potholes, I mean, that's getting $5.5 million. Rail is only receiving $1 billion. And PT is only ever so slightly more than the pothole prevention. What influence can we have, or you have, or likewise, whatever, on really sort of looking at more of a social lens and responsibility on what we're doing here? Because if it's now that we can do that, then let's have it, because later is too late. But that is really overspend of like repairing something that's often, I did watch Q&A the other day. Yes, I did. But it's more that I was alarmed at the repairing of potholes rather than actually doing a proper job and not putting it to social responsibility reasons. Heavy traffic is doing it. Let's take them off the road.
I'll try to get to the inherent questions and no, it's fine. There's quite a lot to unpack. There is quite a lot to unpack there, so forgive me as I do my best impression of my father, Councillor Sunkel. First of all, let's just quickly cover rail. Okay, the $1 billion that you see as in the activity class for rail is by no means the total investment that occurs in rail. It is the contribution from the land transport system and that revenue stream, fuel excise duty and road user charges, through into the rail system by way of, and I should have said up front, forgive me, we adore speaking in acronyms in NZTA, and so the RNIP. The rail network investment plan is that capital investment program that the Crown signs off for rail investment, and it is significantly larger than $1 billion. That is, this merely is the reflection of our funding stream into that pot by way of the revenue source. If you want a recognition that land transport, by way road transport, benefits from having a viable rail network, the total amount, totally set by the Crown. Okay, let me see if I can just do a few other things and we'll come back to you. Pothole prevention, newly created activity classes by Minister Brown in this government policy statement, effectively split out what were combined activities for maintenance and operations on roads. Right, everything. So an activity class that in the past covered everything from bridge inspections to filling potholes. Minister came into office very clear that the condition of the road had deteriorated too much over quite a number of years. This is not a short-term problem. Effectively, from a set of instructions issued to us all the way back and investment settings all the way back in about 2009, where we in particular were instructed to sweat the asset for longer, for more. And you can do that for a while, but you can't indefinitely reseal roads. The fundamental condition of the road underneath just breaks and cracks and everything moves too much, and then you have potholes just forming all of the time. And I think that would be the minister's argument in terms of why he saw the need to act. We provide advice into the writing of a government policy statement in terms of the levels of investment, what you'd get for it, etc., etc. And it was the minister's judgment that road condition, the investment in literally replacing the road surface, was important. In terms of influencing that, because it isn't ours, you can express your dissatisfaction, desire for different settings as much as you like, but as I say, we don't write it. Yeah, I think it is any time from now. The current minister is actively considering what he might want to see in a draft GPS, and will issue a draft for consultation when that aligns with, frankly, the entirety of the rest of the things he's trying to deal with. If we follow the timeline that happened last 3 years ago, we had a draft GPS issued by the previous government and the then Minister of Transport about July. In what would be this year, that then triggered election manifestos from everyone else in terms of their alternate takes on how they would set the funding the funding system. There was an election, as there will be for us in November, and post-election, the then minister picked up his commitments, our advice, the ministry's advice, and presumably the input of others who had been communicating to him about what they wanted to see, and issued a new draft GPS, which was the draft that then informed this, for public consultation. That was about March of the next year, and this document wasn't approved until the middle July of next year. So you've got, frankly, you've basically got the next year of opportunity, let's call it that, to influence the funding settings.
Just to follow up on that, I just guess that, whether or not you look at the money as, identifying factors, it's just so disproportionate. And whether or not what number is applied, it is very clearly. My main concern is that, I guess, with the increase in industry, is the heavy trucks and extractive industry trucks and things, putting more pressure on our roads. Is it not more prudent to probably get those very industries to contribute more rather than the general public? And so that's where my main concern is, and just wondering if that is something that's come to your attention.
Very, very often raised with me. So let me make one thing clear, because I'm remiss not to. So we are the receivers, the collectors of revenue. We collect fuel excise duty, we collect road user charges, but we do not set those levels. So those are set by ministers, by statute. So again, if what you are arguing for is a change in those revenue settings, either because you want more money flowing into the system or you want the burden spread differently, those are, again, ministerial decisions, and so the path of advocacy for that is, I hope, clear. We simply take those revenue settings and apply them. It's a different point, but while we're on activity classes, again, I should raise it because it's important for you to have in your head. I think it is worth saying that Canterbury sits at a quite difficult position within the range of public transport authorities. You are far and away the largest bus network that is running, really, I know you have a ferry, but really largely buses. Okay? You are hard to compare to the other bus networks because you're just so much bigger. But you are so much smaller than Auckland and Wellington, which have trains. Yes, they run buses as well, but they have trains. And the existing rail public transport networks in those cities fundamentally alter the cost structures of those networks. It is very difficult to compare Canterbury's or Christchurch's system with Auckland's or Wellington's because they're just fundamentally structured differently. And it is very hard to cleanly work out what an equity case might look like, what an appropriate level of funding is. And I hope I made it clear, but for clarity's sake, that isn't how we think about funding. We don't, and the government policy statement doesn't instruct us to hit an equity point. But equity in the system is clearly something that gets raised regularly by communities, and it is genuinely hard to compare Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch, Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and Dunedin, or to bring in, because they are just genuinely different systems. We look at the value of the case, the investment case before us. What is the value derived from investing the next dollar in a particular project? But it is impossible to escape just the fundamental differences in comparison.
Kia ora, James. Thanks for that. As you know, Canterbury's the largest region in New Zealand, and I no doubt when you go to Wellington and you champion Canterbury, of course, not one-eyed at all. But I mentioned to you before, the activity classes, and as Genevieve brought it up, I thought I'd ask a question here regarding that, a breakdown of what those activity classes are inside Canterbury. I mean, just would be good. I know some areas you cannot compare. You just mentioned PT. Considering Wellington and Auckland, you see a lot. Auckland getting the lot. They have got a lot of the largest population, of course, and they have trains on top and under the ground. So of course that's going to change the funding model and the money that goes to them. But it's not in these slides. But could they be made available, or are they easily accessible?
Both. They can be made available. They are easily accessible. The Regional Transport Committee has those figures. I don't have them with me honestly today, but I'm more than happy to supply them to you. Beyond the sort of comparison I just did with public transport, and that is a meaningful and important distinction and why it's hard to compare regions on PT. If you look just across, if you just cut the total money allocated or spent for a region, you are right that Canterbury sits at the bottom end of that, and whether you try to work that out on what would be quote unquote fair on a per head basis or on a GDP basis or a vehicle kilometres travelled basis, Canterbury does sit for this funding period outside the rest of the pack. But it is really important to understand the impact that we as the state highway operator have on that. If we, and we did in Christchurch and Canterbury in preceding funding cycles, if we have a very large highway project in a region, those are typically large and expensive, and they bring that investment in a region significantly up. Since finishing the Christchurch Southern Motorway and the Christchurch Northern Corridor, we've not been building a significantly large motorway in or around in Canterbury at all. We're preparing the groundwork for the road of national significance that is in the region in terms of the Belfast to Pegasus, including the William Bypass, but we're not in the construction phase of that, so that money isn't captured in that period. And so what you're really reflecting when you say, or I say, Canterbury sits outside the norm, is that there are large motorway building projects elsewhere and there aren't here. If that is what is being argued for, that's fine, but I think it is important to be clear that whether or not a motorway is being built is often the determining factor. It isn't investment in any of those other activity classes. It is usually the state highway, just because it is so large in spending relative to those others.
Sure, James, thank you for that. Ashley.
Stay on activity classes just for 1 minute, and then we'll do a jump. I just want to be really clear in my own mind, and I think you've answered it. You said that the activity classes are fundamentally at the discretion of the minister. Does that mean both the amount that goes into the activity classes and what the activity classes are themselves? Like there could be an urban monorail activity class, or if a minister so desired.
We haven't had an urban monorail activity class yet. But for example, we had the previous funding cycle, we had a coastal shipping activity class. It was only $30 million, and actually we have continued outside activity classes to invest money in strangely, in coastal shipping. But yes, what those activity classes are, and the maximum and minimum amounts within them, and what what is captured in each of them is entirely at the discretion of the minister. So, one other example, the safety activity class this time round really only covers 2 activities. This safety activity class of $1.7 billion captures the investment that NZTA has with the New Zealand Police, which is the largest inter-Crown transfer within the Crown, for road policing. So we pay the New Zealand Police to police the roads. That is the vast bulk of that money. Beyond that, that activity class captures road safety promotion. So the ads against whether it's drink or drug driving or speed that you see on television or streaming services or however you get your media, those come by way of us, by way of that activity class. That's the only activity really that's captured in that class these days. Last funding cycle, there was a safety activity class, and it contained those activities and funded exclusively safety capital investment in terms of road upgrade. So safety barriers, roundabouts that improved intersections, all of that you could apply to that activity class and not compete against any of the other outcomes that the government was purchasing, because there was ring-fenced money for safety for capital upgrade. That got moved out, again, just simply at the desire of the minister. That's the government policy, fine, but it entirely rests with the minister.
So second question is to my favourite slide 14. And I'm looking, 2 questions on this, one of which you touched on before. But the first one, Horizon 2, looking at that, it says to me, what I'm reading from that is it says that we're probably behind schedule. Is that right?
From the point of view of when this was produced, yes, this is drawn, as I said, from the indicative business case, which was produced in the preceding funding period, prior to current government policy being set, and at the pace and that we were undertaking the work then, what we could see the work program in front of us, the dates on that slide, yes, we probably could have moved faster, but Crown policy changed. What is in front of us and what comes next after that and after that and after that, that is still largely settled, and it is simply a matter of working through that. So
we'll get to the MRT excitement bit now. So in terms of, what we're looking at here, we've got 2 definite phases, out to Church Corner, up to Papanui, then out to Hornby, and then up to Belfast. What sort of time frame are we looking at to have phase 2 complete? Is there a time frame, or is it just one day we'll get there?
I don't think it's realistic to talk about timeframes, largely because we don't, as I say, even have a designated route yet. I mean, we know where we want it, but there's quite a legal process to go through, whether, frankly, that is taken by way of existing fast track or taken through other. The entire planning framework in the country is changing. We will need to work through how that works and how long that takes, understand what the actual costs in terms of things like property acquisition are, before you can then work out how affordable it is and when and how fast you want to move. So no, I don't think it's sensible to put timeframes on that.
No, that's okay. So basically we're talking about generational change, probably.
Yeah, well, see, that's very interesting. Generational change is a phrase I sort of recoil from, largely because I think it means different things to different people. If we were minded to go quickly, we could move reasonably quickly on this. If not, and we're willing to just sort of step through it as resources allow, then that's fine too. I think that rests with too many decisions and too many organisations to be really clear whether or not the answer is go fast or go slow. It could happen, within the next decade. It could take longer. There's lots of different moving parts here.
Okay, I totally accept that. So then, in terms of looking at this, for whatever comes after us, in terms of Christchurch shaping and planning, there's this lovely little exciting thing of the possibility of an east to airport link at some stage in the distant future. I'm just wondering how much value there is in putting out these ideas early on so that the people who are doing the city planning can start making space and room and for them very early on, rather than trying to buy up $60 million houses somewhere because we didn't think about it soon enough. What's the relationship there between not being too optimistic and not giving people ideas about something that might not happen to saying this could happen, so start planning for it now?
I think that's exactly why we are in the phase we're in right now. That is, and why it is the Christchurch City Council that is leading that work, because it is their planning framework, their road network, their other wider concerns that directly impact on the trade-offs that you're talking about. But there is no substitute in a program like this for chunking through that work very carefully, and you get to that moment when we go to designate a road where it goes from a plan and a document to actual plans that impact people's property, and that's a moment of reality that you can't take lightly, but that's why it sits with. I mean, gentlemen on either side of me are involved in that work. It is important and necessary work that isn't something to rush. We'll get there when we get there.
Thanks, James. Just a comment from Stephanie.
I just remind us as well, James, that we do have a Greater Christchurch spatial plan that we all agreed to. And that somehow needs to inform a regional spatial plan once the two bills become law in whatever form they are. And this council remains to be able to contribute in some form to that, and particularly as long as we deliver public transport. So I think there's still an intersection for these councillors, James, into the future, and in that context, councillor.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying you're absolutely right. And it is, just to be clear and explicit, this work is entirely supported by the Greater Christchurch Spatial Plan. So it all does knit together at the moment. It is all one cohesive whole. It isn't as though we're busy in one space planning for it never to happen, and one space planning desperately for it to happen, and there will be an inevitable intersection there. This is all lined up very carefully, slowly working forward.
Kia ora, James. Over to you, John.
Thank you, James and team. That cohesive whole, I suspect I would spell it differently if I was thinking about bus service into Selwyn, particularly Rolleston. The 5 out of Rolleston is full in peak hours. The 86 out of Darfield is full and oversubscribed, and the top up we provided is full, and we got some challenges. The 84, 85 with Bentley trial and a bunch of things. 36,000 people, 7,500 consented sections. It'll be 50,000 people by Christmas or something silly. I being facetious, but it's only a matter of a couple of years. So, and then I think of Lincoln and a university with 5,500 students and need and transport. What hope can you give the good people of Selwyn, Rolleston, Lincoln and the likes to what an uplift could be and when? Because it's great thinking of the cohesive whole spelt with a W, but we see a real hole in the actual bus services that we face, possibly for some considerable time.
I think it really depends whether you want to consider the glass to be half full or half empty. I think there are plenty of reasons to hope, and let me step through the process briefly. Those services are envisaged by the business case. They are envisaged by your regional public transport plan. They are envisaged by your regional land transport plan, and I presume you will be in discussions about your long-term plan, presuming that those services are somehow captured in your long-term plan. In the next Regional Land Transport Plan, they will fall into the Regional Land Transport Plan and will become available for subsidy for us. Those are all necessary steps. You can't escape those, and I have plenty of conversations with councils who present community desires as you have, where none of those steps have yet to be met. And that, it's quite a lot of work to jump through that. Something like PT Futures didn't emerge without a significant amount of work. So you're a long way down that pathway. That said, I know the barrier, the last bit, is, frankly, is there available money from us to support that uplift when you are prepared from a ratepayer point of view for your share? And right now, that is the challenge that we face. We simply, those activity classes, that activity class for public transport services, it simply has too much demand in it. So we will continue to tell you how constrained the funding is, and it brings us back to the conversation about advocacy. I presume that it is in your interests to represent the desire and demand of your customers and ratepayers to have more money available from us by way of a government policy statement so that we can invest. Because we can only invest the amount of money that is available to us in the system through the government policy statement. We don't have the discretion to go beyond that. But to be fair, we can only do that when you've met all those other steps first, and so far you have. So that's not nothing. That is actually a significant process.
Good, thanks, James. Councillor Nick Moody.
Oh, thanks you, James. It's been a great presentation. As a first-term councillor, coming from an environmental management background and working hard to get up to speed on this stuff, it's been very good at helping me to further my thinking and understanding, and particularly around MRT. I've been Googling it and reading and looking at pictures, scratching my head, since before the elections, and this nailed it for me. I was like, yep, I think I finally get it now. So yeah, thank you very much.
Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, it was great. And I'm thinking of Ashley here. I worked on the Hawke's Bay Expressway, and that was the Southern Extension. It was started in the 1950s, I think, the designation. So just be patient. I've got a few questions. And I'm also thinking about the different policies that I've worked with over the years. And one thing I remember working with was the Urban Design Protocol, which... and that was, it was a really good policy to be working with. And I was sort of thinking, of Christchurch and the work that we're doing for the, for this region. It would have been quite a useful document. The bridges is a vulnerability, and that would be a significant capital investment. And I'm thinking something like the Rakaia Bridge being a significantly large bridge, and it does require a very large span. So have you got a program of works in, as a infrastructural maintenance renewal program as far as bridges?
We do. I think it's easiest to characterise in two ways. So we've got no shortage of structures, and we went through as a country a couple of really big energetic bursts of building, getting on about 100 years ago. And so we've got an increasing number of ageing structures. So the first category of structures to think about is those that are end of life, literally running either because they are physically at their end of life, or from an economic point of view, it is simply more costly to maintain it than it is to replace it. and we have a limited program of end-of-life bridge replacements, and we're trying to get across those, and trying to be clear about what the future demand in that program looks like, because it will increase. But let's deal with the example that you used. You flagged the Rakaia Bridge. The Rakaia Bridge is not end of life and not likely to be end of life, frankly, anytime soon. Yeah, look, it's relatively well maintained. It's relatively easy to maintain, and unlike many of the other state highway river crossings in Canterbury, it's actually served really well by the width. I mean, it's New Zealand's longest road bridge, but because the river is so wide there, the force on it at any one time is actually reasonably dispersed. The biggest threat to the Rakaia Bridge is not the river; it's closure from crash, and that does happen. And when it closes, it is significantly disruptive, because you are sent on a quite significant detour to a gorge bridge that is less accommodating than the State Highway 1 bridge. So if you're thinking about the Rakaia Bridge and you're thinking about upgrading it, you really are jumping classes. We're no longer talking end-of-life bridge. We are talking upgrade, improvement. And for that, we really need to understand when would be the sensible point, what benefit you would get from it, how much is it going to cost, how would you do it, where would you do it. We're just beginning a piece of work that captures port to port, Littleton to Centreport and Timaru, in the highway corridor along that, and sweeps up a whole bunch of interesting places and points along there. But one of the things that I think you will hope eventually, and I say eventually because, as you point out, none of this moves quickly, you will get out of that is an understanding of, let's just think Christchurch to Ashburton as a segment of that corridor. When are the necessary upgrade points for that? When do you need to add more passing lanes or go to 2 plus 1, 2 lanes and 1 lane? Or and there are other bridges there. What's the state of the Selwyn Bridge? What's its capacity? There's a couple of rail crossings there. Those sorts of questions fall out. And other people have slightly different questions that are in the same corridor. When do you need to 4-lane it? And the short answer right now is, look, we know there's an awful lot of traffic on that corridor, but we haven't studied it for a while. So we're just kicking that piece of work off to effectively begin unpacking and understanding a bunch of those triggers.
Just last question, please, Sarah, because we've got to finish up at 2:30.
Which side? I've got it in front of me, sir.
Button, please, Sarah.
So slide 10 is, page 10. And it's really the map of...
The map of MRT?
Thank you. So for Rolleston, Mangor, the people coming in from the hinterland as well, that there hasn't been a direct link to the airport. People having to go into the city and then back out. It's sort of like, I sort of see the airport as an important destination. And
I think the shortest answer is, first of all, let's do those townships to mass rapid transit. I'll unpack that. So it doesn't make sense to extend mass rapid transit out to those district townships, simply because actually we've built good enough motorways. The new motorways that we have literally just finished building, within the last decade, make it far too easy, or relatively speaking, cheap and easy to put on existing bus services. They are under pressure in terms of there not being enough, but it is a hell of a lot easier to put on more buses than it is to build out a mass rapid transit network all the way there, and they would service that demand they would service that demand well enough. If you're thinking about destination, the shortest answer is the indicative business case shows that genuinely most people are wanting to travel along this corridor into the city. Yes, people go to the airport, they absolutely do, but they're relatively well serviced by transport connections to the airport at the moment. Yeah. Yep.
Ka pai. Kia ora, James. Just a question from Stephanie.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for indulging me. Probably slightly unfair because it only came out 48 hours ago, so I don't expect an answer. But I wonder if you could give my councillors a little bit of direction around process in future. You're aware the Infrastructure Commission, the government responded to them. They agreed through recommendation number 2 that the land transport funding and oversight needed to be attended to. And particularly the Commission identified issues with investment pricing and delivery settings, much of what we talked about today, and that there's going to be publicly consulted by June 2028. And you mentioned the window for the GPS. Just wondering how these things fit together and if there's any advice today that you could give them, and if not, when you might be able to come back with some advice.
Yeah, you're right. I don't have advice on that today, but it's absolutely a fair question because, as you say, they are all the issues that we've touched on today. I'm more than happy to provide advice as soon as I have some. I would envisage it will be on the agenda for MCERT as soon as it is stood up 1 July, and part of why it has been given the date that it has been given is to give time to pull all of the issues that tie into that up enough. Time to be gathered and then kicked off. But I'll provide you advice as soon as I've got some.
Kia ora koroa. Richard, James, thank you for coming in today. As you heard from the councillors, you have provided a great overview of the role of waka kotahi in both regional and public transport. And, you know, we can go, someone can go away and talk about the GPS, FT, PT futures and your MRT. So thank you for the acronyms, James, and nei te mihi kia koroa. Kia ora. Kia ora whānau. We have a CRTC workshop coming up next, so we'll just stop there and then get ready for
and go through some of this. And it is live, is it? Is it a public workshop? I mean, from a live point of view, yeah. Yeah. Are you recording now? Okay, let's start.
Press the button. Okay, so thank you for reorganising the time. This is the postponed workshop from the May to now. So the purpose is to seek some guidance from you guys as we head into developing a feasible and affordable work program for the Regional Land Transport Plan, which is what we're required to do under the Act. And so you've endorsed a strategic approach, and we will be following that approach through the development. So you were there. So this is the May workshop in June. And we'll come back with some options in September of a high-level approach to the 10-year work program. We were hoping to have a draft GPS by now, but it hasn't come out, so we are still working to the existing GPS.
And just for the mayors in the room, we've just had Mayor Lydia join us. In terms of the is on the way as well. I spoke to Chris Bishop just last week, and a bit of detail about it. There is no time frame yet for the GPS. He doesn't see that there's any. He even said he doesn't even know if it'll come out this side of the election. He said he will try, but he said he doesn't know if it will. So if we're hanging our hats on that particular point, we are quite out of luck. However, we do have some signals that have started to come out from the Infrastructure Commission report and some of the wording that was used in there, which I think is quite useful for us to start to tease out. And I think at some point it will be very useful for the committee to potentially get a update on where that infrastructure report where it's landed, because it does have that cross-party buy-in at this point in time, especially around the language that it's using, because the language, if that translates into GPS, will mean a bit of a difference in how the funding is allocated, and then we need to be ready for making sure that that funding, getting those words right so that we can be ready to pounce for the funding where it might be reappropriated.
Yes, absolutely. So that's all, we're folding that all into the process, and so we will be using the updated language. And we're also we're working to what's provided to us through NZTA as well, because then it gets consistent across the sector. So this is in that context. So legally, the RLTP is still developed under the existing GPS. That's always been the approach. So I can go through a bit about that scene setting, and then we can get into the activities as a bit of a reminder.
Yep.
If I just say quickly, so this is not a situation that we haven't been in before. With the previous GPS, last time we developed the RLTP as well, we were faced with this exact situation. Just on the Infrastructure Commission piece as well, I've asked the team to have a look at that, provide a briefing for the RTC. We don't have another meeting until August, I think. But we'll try and look to maybe even circulate a briefing on the Infrastructure Commission recommendations, and if we need to, we can have a briefing with members as well.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the implications are and then the opportunities.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's what we'll be developing.
Yep.
So the work program that we develop and the options that we come back to the committee with in September will be based in that context. So we're taking that into account when we come to you with the work program options.
Okay, cool.
So under the LTMA, the work program needs to be feasible and affordable. What is meant by feasible and affordable? So in this current funding context, we'll probably take a different assumption to what we mean as feasible and affordable, and use historic levels of funding over the previous 10 years as being a potentially feasible and affordable approach. And we will look at some other options for if that situation were to change as well. But conceptually, so where we sit in the transport planning system is there's the government policy statement and the transport systems team setting this kind of long-term strategic direction, and then there's our level, and then underneath that is the activities that get provided to us by the road controlling authorities and the public transport and the state highways. So we don't control the activities that are provided to us, and we don't decide them. So the guidance today is at that meso higher level layer to support us in creating a program at that layer. So what we'll start off with is I've got a starting board that is based on the 2024 RLTP, where the approach we took to affordability was using a proportion of the population and the GPS activity class categories and kind of aiming towards that. And there was no trade-offs required from that approach. And so that resulted in a roughly $10 billion plan. But then we don't see that money coming back into the region, even if it's being generated, which you are aware of as a committee. So that is one approach, and then the other approach is to scale back from there. So that's what we'd like your guidance on today as we, for the staff, as we develop options. So I will now shift to the Miro board that I have here. So the activity today, I'm using the mouse on here. Hopefully everybody can see this. So this isn't specifically activities. These are sort of levers, if you like, transport levers. So these are the transport outcomes provided by the Ministry of Transport, and so there's a descriptor of that was provided in your packs. And then these are some high-level levers that you can pull and push on to achieve the transport outcomes. And I've kind of tried to put them roughly in order of value for money. So the baseline investments here, and then going up to the increasingly expensive improvements and their impact on outcomes. So these are two separate tables. It's not like resilience and security is from roads. All of this supports the resilience of the network. They're two separate tables. So the activity is at the moment on here, this is from the 2024 where there was no trade-offs. So all your little blue stickers next to each outcome. And this was where the investment sat. So the first activity is going to be to remove 8 of these green, 8 of these green stickies from here and 4 of these blue stickies from here. So I need to zoom in. And so these little sticky tabs are in $500 million buckets. So it's just indicative. It's not exactly what you're going to get. Everything will still have something in it. But it just gives us guidance as to what are your priorities for the region.
So can I have context? In the last NLTF funding, is that the right terminology? Mr. Terminology Dude over the right. We got $1.8 billion over 3 years.
Yes.
And are we talking in this a 3-year, what we're looking for over a 3-year period? Is that what you're...
This is 10 years.
This is 10 years.
This is 10 year.
Okay, so 10 years. Oh, well,
this is 10 years. So it was 10 billion over 10 years.
Yeah.
And then we're going to pull back to 6 billion and get where you would put your money and the outcomes. And then the next cut will go to 4. Now, I think 4 is lower than what we would expect, but it gives us guidance as to what your priorities are and how you're trading things off, so that then when we come back with the work programs in September, we've got some options for you to discuss that fit in with what you want, the discussion you want to have.
So what is the and I know this is going to be hard, James, for you to answer, but what is the baseline money that we're putting in to the system in Canterbury over this 10-year period? And I know that might sound stupid, but I'm saying that should be our baseline where we start, or at least have the start point from negotiations. Where did the numbers 4, 6, 10 kind of come from?
So 10 was the 2024 RLTP. The 6 was, I think the 2021 RLTP was about 5.8, so about the 6 mark. The 4 is lower than the roughly 4.5 that is at our current space. So if you can pull this back from where traditionally RLTP has kind of taken we're all in, everything's all in the boat, see what we get, taking that different approach to developing a feasible and affordable work program to give you guys some clear options on actually how the investment that needs to be made to maintain the network and services across the region to support transport outcomes and where that investment might best sit.
Okay, James?
Sorry, thanks, Claire. I think I understand what you're trying to do, which is a painful tensioning exercise, but I like it. Can you just tell me what sits in partnerships, promotions, pricing and regulations for $500 million?
So that was one sticky tab. So that's all.
Use your microphone.
So that is all of the road safety education and awareness. It's all of the transport planning costs as well go into that. There's some travel demand management work from City Council. The one sticky is the minimum.
3.
But there's in the NZTA evidence pack that was provided to us to support development. There was much more emphasis or building out of these types of interventions and options for transport. So it's being signalled, I guess, through that we've been provided by NZTA and that from the transport systems team, I believe, as being a key levers to pull for transport outcomes.
I think I'm ready.
So how do you want to run this?
We've got
4 of us in the room and 3 online.
Which 4 would you like me to pull off from here? And I'll take your guidance as to what I move, Mr. Chair.
Oh, give me so much power. Craig Mackle, you said you had the power, so what do you think, mate? He's gone. James.
My starter for 10, I would remove 1 from everything except health and safety.
Well, see, I was going to remove 1 from everything except for resilience and security.
Excellent. I love that. Great. Let's then remove 3 from everything else and 1 not from health and safety and not from resilience and security, and we'll argue about where the last one comes from.
What does everybody else think about it? Online, any thoughts to this?
I'm very willing to move on that. I just thought health. I think the blue is harder than the green. I'm absolutely certain I know where the 8 should come from the green. Damn it! But that's just me.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts, especially the people online, about where those may sit?
I'm willing to change my vote to yours, Dion. So now we're all aligned.
Because the only reason that I'm saying that is because our priorities and the other stuff is about resilience in our network, and that is the number 1 priority that we've already agreed on.
No, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so health and safety is out. Oh, it's still in, but it's
not as in as resilience and security.
Yeah. So there you go. So that kind of aligns with the existing priorities that we've already agreed to as a committee.
I feel that's fine. Yep.
I think that's relatively simple. Now the next part is where it might get.
It's easy.
Leave it all there, or maybe take it out from the city. Because I think there's James.
Yeah, I haven't gone, Dion.
Oh.
It took me this long to find my way to the mic. So I agree. Take it from the city.
Like it. Sorry. Keep your
Can I
composure,
just get
Swigs.
some clarity on what? Yeah, this is Victoria here. I've just come into the room a little bit late, please, and all I've heard is taken from the city. Can someone tell me what you're taking from the city, please, and give me an opportunity to respond?
We're not taking anything.
He
at the
hasn't
moment.
done it yet,
Victoria. It
Victoria,
was
so
a
don't worry about
joke.
it.
No, it's just I was looking at that bottom line, which is urban road maintenance, renewals, minor improvements, a $3 billion start. So what we've got to do in this exercise is remove some eight green dots out of this. And I'm not even willing to do 8, but
Yeah.
I am.
You are.
Yep. If you want me to remove 8, I think 7 of them have to come from those top, all of the top categories. I think if you are cutting revenue over 10 years by the amount that you're trying to get us to do, which I understand why, it's a lovely, painful exercise, I don't think we have a choice at that point to pay for improvements. I think that is to say, great, we will not have improvements in that 10-year period, but we will maintain what we have. I get the maths that I now have to find $500 million from somewhere else to have less than what we've got, but I want 7. I want to have no rural road improvements, no urban road improvements, no public transport improvements, and no partnerships and promotions. That's 7 categories. And then I'm going to have to find 1 from some painful category, and I have to either cut public transport services, rural road maintenance, or urban road maintenance. At that point, I want to have it all ways and find whatever a third of 500 is from all 3 and just slightly hedge back on all of them. But I know you don't want me to do that for the exercise. So I'm going to pick the one with the most investment, which is urban road maintenance. Just because it's got the most in it already. But that also probably, I think you'll tell me, reflects the size of the asset. So I was probably not making a sensible choice, but such are the constraints of the exercise. But the first part is the point of principle I'm trying to make. I think when you're reduced by that amount of money over 10 years, you simply have to say improvements are going to have to be funded from somewhere else. Because you're just doing the rest of the network, the resilience and security that we've prioritised. You're doing everything else a disservice by underinvesting in what you've got. So I would rather say no to improvements.
And that kind of aligns with that what we've done on the blue there with the resilience piece, and that kind of ties in with making sure what you've got is fit for purpose. Victoria, thoughts, and then I'll come back to you, Lydia.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think looking after what we've got has to be one of our major priorities. Managing the renewals across, multi-generations and just continuing to meet our core service standards really has to be our strategic priority. It's the first thing. The other one is just making sure that we're also planning for growth, that we do have investment in the right places, so that we've got the infrastructure capacity that's going to support and enable the growth. So that's why I wouldn't want to see it taken out of public transport major improvements. We've got to keep that there because we've got to be able to continue to grow that plan for growth and that capacity. The only question that I've got then becomes around resilience. We need to be building more resilience to the natural hazards into our transport assets and planning for climate adaptation. So I'd be really reluctant to slice it off there. But I'm not quite sure where that fits in really in terms of those stickies. Thoughts?
Question, you got anything on that?
Yes, so resilience can be achieved through both the maintenance renewals and minor improvements buckets as well as the major improvements. Most of the resilience investment in Canterbury is coming through those baseline programs at the moment, is my understanding.
I've got a question.
Can I just check back in? Can I just check back in with James, please? Then, where were you saying to take the 8? Can you just swing back around, please?
I would have taken the 8 from where the cursor is now. So no rural road major improvements, no urban road major.
Sorry, I'm on a different screen.
Let's not take 2 out of everything yet.
I would take because if the exercise is to take 8,
we'll get the one off each of them first.
Okay, I would leave nothing in that bucket, nothing in that bucket, nothing in the bucket below it, and nothing in the bucket below that. So I'd take all that's 7.
There's 7.
And then then you got to find 1 from somewhere, and I think it's equally painful But given that there's $3 billion to play with the most, you can probably find the most efficiency savings and re-engineer programs and smooth the hurt more in that than anything else. I'd take it from urban. But there's no real science in that. That's just thumb in the air.
I was thinking something similar, but the question that I had is that if you take money out of, say, existing public transport services and also then took out one out of the public transport major improvements, are you literally then leaving money in the public transport major improvements to basically get back what you've taken away from existing public transport improvements? Is
Correct.
that kind of where this is how this works at a high level?
So if we take money, you're saying if you take something off the existing public transport services and then put it into major improvements, I would have to go back to the transport officers group around that, but because public transport is mostly OPEX, it might not be feasible because the improvement increases the OPEX. So you're taking off OPEX to increase with OPEX increases. So
that's what I mean. So if you take it off the baseline, which is your existing, so like those bottom three are literally baselines, aren't they?
Yeah.
And public transport's one that is OPEX, so you don't have a lot of capital flex in that. So baseline is your existing, and then you've got that line that's public transport major improvements. If you took it off the baseline and then left it in the improvements, you'd actually just be using that money to get back to your baseline, wouldn't you?
Yes, it wouldn't improve public
that's
transport.
right. So
that's
okay. Now I kind of
it.
see what James is saying in that respect. I mean, what does other people think of this? I'd like to hear from Lydia or Liz.
Look, I think when you're trying to remove all of this, you've got to look after what you've got first, right? You can't not look after what you've got. And as painful as that is, improvements go to the side when we don't look after what we have. I think, Dion, you make a really good point around existing public service, transport services, and then improvements. So again, it sort of has that same ethos for me, is you look after what you currently have before you put improvements in. So, that bucket's gone, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it is hard because you go to the maintenance, so those two baseline ones at the bottom, and you've got 1.5 or billion or 3 billion, and it becomes really difficult to take away because they're still roads. So when you're looking at rural roads, you actually have more kilometres of road.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just looking. Can you have one of those blocks? Like, I'm just looking at the partnerships, promotions, pricing, regulations. Like,
it won't be as bad as this when we bring the options to you. This is designed to be it's designed to be forced choice, so we get your guidance. Yeah.
I think you've heard. So Liz. Liz. Well, I just looked at you, Ashley. Craig, did you have any thoughts on that? I know this probably is a little bit harder for you guys online, and I appreciate that. So, but would like to get some thoughts from you.
Mine is very simple, as always. Obviously, to have it put in there for the start, it's important to everybody, each of them. So why couldn't you just wind back the percentages, or 8%, an even amount across the whole lot of them?
I think that was
like if you're talking. Sorry, carry on.
I was just saying, I think if you did that, you would then be the argument that we were just having before is the baselines versus the major improvements, and then so if you wound back each of them a slight amount, you reduce the baseline, then your major improvements are just going to go back to your baseline. So it really doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
James?
I'm looking at it from a rural perspective only.
Yeah. James was just going to say something.
Just to provide a different example to illustrate the point, because it's slightly different between the OPEX, CAPEX example with PT. You could, for example, leave 2 stickies in, what are we calling Belfast to Pegasus? Rural? I'll call it rural for argument's sake. In the rural improvements category, that would fund you the Woodend bypass. for example, it's of that scale. So it's 2 stickies worth. That's the size of that project, right?
Yep.
It's 2 stickies. You would have to take 2 stickies off. Let's just pretend you're taking it off the corresponding maintenance for the same. So we're calling it rural. I'll take it off rural. The rest of your rural network declines substantially because of that, but you end up with a nice new bypass somewhere. I'm not sure. People are welcome to make that trade-off if that's what they want to argue for, but I don't think that's a trade-off worth making. I think that is the wrong way around. So just to be clear why, I would rather we didn't build new, but we maintained what we had, as opposed to piecemeal have nice infrastructure and infrastructure that is falling apart because we're not maintaining it at the same time.
Craig, Rowley. Yeah, I think your mic might not be working, mate. Yeah, no, we've got no sound from you, Craig, and Rowley, unfortunately. Do you want to try and fix that and we'll come back to you? Just give us a thumbs up on something, maybe. Or even write it into the chat like I saw a chat just pop up before. Okay, James.
Sorry, the risk of complicating your exercise one, but I'm trying very much to play within your rules, Claire. And I know you're going to make it more painful by making us remove more, and I'm up for that. That's really fun, not. But then I would ask, actually, I know you haven't put it in your schema. You've made us remove 8. I would like actually to push us to add 4 back in and give you a midpoint read as well, just so that gives you that's 10, 8, 6, and 4, because adding just relieving the pressure a bit will show us where we want new to come to more, as opposed to, because 10 has no trade-offs at all, and 6 arguably has so many trade-offs we're not really trading off, we're just hurting ourselves, right?
I would recommend doing that after we've done the painful 4, so then you're leaving the room feeling a little bit better.
Okay. All right. So let's get back to the exercise. Let's take off the other one in the rural road improvements. This is going to look awful, and I apologise to my rural colleagues who are mostly in the room here. I know.
This one?
Yep, 2 out of that. Sorry, Victoria.
Oh, it's so brutal.
No. Sorry, PT Futures. Oh.
Sorry. Well?
Yep. Sorry, Transport Operators Group and all of the consultants out there. And then,
is it this one?
Yep. And we're taking that one. And again, sorry, Victoria, I apologise here. But I'm sure we'll find some improvements one way or another.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
If this ends up being what happens, I will lose it. I'm not sure who I'll lose it to, but
we only come with plausible options to the table.
Okay, because we have to be better at being more aspirational. So what I'm going to say now is we need to be better at being more aspirational about what money is coming into the system for Canterbury and what goes back out from the government for Canterbury. And this is why at the start I was talking about this Infrastructure Commission work and the opportunities that presents to us, and I think this is going to help Canterbury. So I think Canterbury will be in a better place than what we've got right now. But I will go with your exercise, even though it's making my my body quiver. This better not even be worst case scenario. If it is, I'll lose it. Okay, next, where do we go from here?
Okay, so next, if you could please remove 2 blue stickies.
Hey, that wasn't part of what I thought was happening. Okay.
Okay, 1 resilience and 1.
So yeah, if that's the case, we'd take a screenshot of that first.
Yeah, that's your 6.
Yeah? Oh, I do. Oh, take my screenshot. Yeah. Okay, I've got to get this.
6 billion investment, and now you're pushing us down to 4.
Yes.
Oh, I'm moving to Australia. I'm moving to Australia.
Okay, so 1 out of resilience and security. That seems reasonable if we're going to this point. And then where do we make the trade-off? Environmental sustainability, inclusive, accessible, economic prosperity, like.
Noting that they trade off that they flow into each other. They very much do.
Yeah.
Which is what you did make. I think.
Either inclusive and accessible or environmentally
Yeah,
sustainable.
I'm afraid you're right.
That's where I'm sitting, and I'm probably leaning more because I'm an Environment Canterbury councillor. I'm probably leaning more into the inclusive and accessible because, for me, health and safety kind of is part of that. Yeah, they are interlinked. Any thoughts from anybody online? We've got to take one more dot off the blue.
Environmentally sustainable.
No.
No, I'd agree with you on that one, Dion.
Victoria? What is inclusive and accessible?
So there should be an outcomes definitions document provided. I don't have that up on my screen. The central government investment is in this plan and we prioritise it.
Sorry, I don't understand. Could you give me an example then of inclusive and accessible, but also environmentally sustainable? Because that's the two that I'm playing around with.
Yeah, so that, I think, is the debate in the room at the moment, is which one of those two. I think the three, health and safety, economic prosperity, and resilience and security, are staple. They stay. The question is, if we go to the lowest, like, which I really hope doesn't happen, what would be the priority that would drop off first between inclusive and accessible and environmentally sustainable?
So you've got the list. Can you give everyone
So for people so I'll just read out the list here, which is from the Ministry of Transport. So I won't go through them all. I'll just go through. Inclusive access enables all people to participate in society through access to social and economic opportunities such as work, education, and healthcare. To be inclusive, and then it says, to be inclusive, the transport system must be accessible to all people in New Zealand, including those with disabilities, low-income earners, and people of different age, genders, and ethnicities. And in the environmental sustainability, what that means is the transport system will transition to net zero carbon emissions and maintain improved biodiversity, water quality and air quality. After myself reading that, I'm actually going to take off environmental sustainability, because if we're not going to be creating a environment where we get people being able to get to work and education and healthcare, then actually society is going to go backwards. We're not going to have much money to pay for any of the rest of it. So
yeah, I'm with you on that one, Dion. And this isn't the only way in which transport isn't the only way in which you look after your environment and achieve your sustainability goals. It's not a cut funding as in not ever. No, not ever. It's just no for not now. Yeah. So I'm with you. I'd cut environmentally sustainable.
Oops.
All right. Anybody, Craig, any other different thoughts to that? No violent objections coming out the screen yet, so all good.
No, not from me, but if you're crossing out major improvements in the green right through, wouldn't that automatically take out inclusive and accessible anyway, because you're only on maintenance here?
And it would also for the environmental sustainability as well, because it's about improving
biodiversity and things
like that. Yeah. You can still do minor improvements in those other lot.
Yeah, but for minor improvements, you're not going to jump on environment sustainability or inclusive and accessible, are you? Because you're not building a new road.
So are you suggesting that you could take out both of inclusive and accessible and both of environmentally sustainable and give 7 instead of 6? And if we do 7 over there, can we add another one into the green?
Or you could put one back into resilience and security. So you could take out inclusivity or inclusive and accessible and the environment and put one into and leave 2 in the resilience and security, like you've just got there right now.
Yeah, actually, I'd support that. Thank you for raising that, Craig. I would support that.
I can see the logic there.
I can see the logic to that.
I think you do, you can and do, particularly in the urban environment, achieve some inclusive and accessible outcomes with minor improvements. I mean, there's lots of, when you go to maintain a road where you rock up and you ease the corners and you change the approach lines and you make it easier to cross the road, for example. That's all covered in minor improvements and all funded through that bottom activity. That said, I do think you're right. I think there is something to saying, well, if you've taken major improvements off the table and you're investing heavily in maintaining what you've got, that in itself is an investment in resilience and security over the other outcomes, and you're probably therefore choosing to have 2 dots there. So I think that actually maps better.
Thoughts? Anybody else? This one. Yeah, we've got right now. I like this. Okay, we're going to go with.
I don't like it, but
it's as I said, if this happens, I'll resign. Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Now we've got to take a couple more off this green side. Can we just move it into the middle a little bit more?
How many have we got to take off? 4. You're so mean.
All right, we'll start with one easy one. We'll take one off public transport to start with. I
think you're taking one off everything and then working out where the fourth one comes from.
Take one off rural road renewals. I know, sorry. And then one more off Victoria.
Jeepers.
And then I think we do take, if we're getting to this point, you probably do take one more off the public transport.
I think you're probably right at this point. I think that's really painful.
I would
but
personally,
sorry,
being on both sides of these tables, I would not really want to go any lower with the renewals, and that doesn't match up with what we've just done.
Your public transport network is largely running on those roads.
Yeah, so it doesn't match up with what we've just done in the blue as well. Anybody online have any different thoughts? Okay, sounds like we're good there. That's I will resign if we end up.
I think good's an overstatement.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Can you quickly undo that damage once you've taken the screenshot? Because this is really painful and we don't want to dwell on it.
All right. So where do we go now?
Now let's put some back in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take my screenshot. I've just got to
save that one as
new
save
document. Bump. I'll just. Everybody's watching me do this. Boop. And then I'll go back here. Oh, bring this one up. Boop. Lovely. Okay, I've got that all snipped there. Okay, so now we can put back in so that there would be 18, 16 back in place here.
First we go back to the 6.
Yeah, so we'll go this side.
So for this one, how many do we put back on?
So we put back on 4.
Okay, so one back in inclusive and accessible, one back in environmental sustainable, at least. So we have a baseline of everything, and then we've got 2 more. So where's the 2 go? Economic prosperity and health and safety. If we go by the other,
and health and safety.
If we go by the other,
yeah.
Logic. That's right. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. That was the easy one. I think we're getting the hang of this already. And now this one. How many more are we putting on in here?
So I just tried to.
So the 2 go back into public transport services.
So one back into urban road maintenance.
Oops, sorry.
And then, one into that.
It makes it easier for me to grab if I zoom in.
One into the rural road renewals. 2 back into there, was it?
Yep.
No, 1.
No, that was the damage we did.
No, that was the damage that we've just done.
Yeah. And now we can add 2.
Oh.
No, we can add 4.
So how many more do we now need to put on? 4. So.
Yeah, 4 more. That's just 6 billion.
4 more.
Okay, so this is where the debate will be.
Put the road maintenance back in under the paint of Victoria.
I'll wait for your guidance on this one, Mr. Chair.
What's that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Victoria. What was
Victoria. So, how many have we got to put in? 4.
4.
Yeah, I'd be going public transport major improvements.
Okay,
And
so
where
if
does the wood end bypass sit?
yeah, so if we go with what we were talking about before, if we go back to that, if we go back to what we said before, we'd put one back in the urban road renewals. That would create that baseline of maintenance. So we'll just put that one back. That
Yep.
gives us 3 more. The next one would be we've got their rural roads major improvements. So I think let's put one back into that. I think that would probably be and we are starting to get some crying out of bridges and things like that, and I think I can speak for Mari and Dan would appreciate that. Now we've got 2 more to put in. So one in I'd be putting one back into PT improvements because that's a Greater Christchurch thing, and that's our the urban parts of the 2 rural parts of our district that would improve those. So now we've got one more.
Just a reminder that the value for money is from here up.
Yes.
Yeah. The higher up you go, the less value you get. Is that right? That's right. Yeah. I was just thinking that about TDM and other things. And I was just thinking that.
I think it needs to go to improvements. So there's both urban and rural when you account for the growth that we need. I'm sorry.
So in the urban road improvements. I think we don't understand necessarily what partnership programs, promotions, regulations actually gets you on the ground. That's the tricky bit there. Is it's not tangible. What we're talking about, everything else is kind of tangible stuff that's getting delivered. This doesn't necessarily, to me, feel tangible, and I think that's what's reflected around what we've just having there right now.
Yes.
I think it needs to go back into urban improvements so that we're accounting for the growth component, because that's where the improvements are going to come from that we're going to need. And I think it is that partnership, promotion, pricing. I'm looking at the things that are a part of that, and actually that's education travel plans, school travel plans, working from home, workplace travel plans, study from home. I mean, I think we can do that elsewhere. I think it's more important that we have improvements.
Yep, no, I think that's it. I just read actually, I'll just read this out for the benefit of people online. What's in the partnership promotions, pricing and regulations is promotional activities and incentives, personalised journey planning, in-vehicle guidance systems, employment and educational travel plans, vehicle regulations, driver's licensing regulations, parking and other road regulations, pricing instruments, enforcement and compliance tools, land use planning mechanisms, 10, 15, 20-minute city spatial planning, and resource efficiency initiatives. I'm not sure that's probably where this committee, from where I'm seen, would be sitting at this point in time with this type of prioritisation. James?
I agree.
I think you read the room.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Okay, that's where we're at. We want to see deliverables of projects for the money that we've got available to us in that respect. Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks, team.
What a painful exercise.
I'm glad Dan wasn't in the room to try that one. Okay, but I am channeling, thinking, what are we next doing? What do we do next?
So which was the easiest decision to make there?
Removing improvements was the easiest.
Oh, removing improvements was the easiest?
Removing improvements.
Actually, I thought removing the partnerships, promotions, pricing and regulations was the easiest for me.
Well, yeah. We'll put that.
Is that a given?
I think so, from where we're at in this room. Craig, any other thoughts on that?
No, happy.
Sweet. All right, and what was the hardest to remove? Maintenance, yeah.
That last box, and then the rest when you went lower, that was. Sorry for those online. And
then also
the last boxes on the eighth box when you did the first reduction, and then the rest of the 4. That was all cutting into meat.
Well, maintenance and
Hurts.
continuous program funding,
the
because that's
continuous
what it
program
is for the
cuts.
public transport. So we just mention that as well, continuous baseline. Well, both of them are baseline and maintenance.
Yeah, that's cutting muscle. That hurts.
That's it. I will take this guidance back to, we've got a workshop with the officers on the 29th of June, and we'll start developing up some high-level options, work program options, to come back to you in September, which will guide us forward from there.
And by September, will you have that that piece of work that I keep going on around, because I want to get this region ready for the investment that we need to be fighting for, and I think everybody in this room, regardless of everything that's going on at the moment with local government reform and RM reform, we all need to be singing on that song sheet, because this is the stuff where the rubber does hit the road that we need to be ready for. So with the infrastructure commission stuff, I think that changes. Look, I'm just looking at it and I'm hopeful. I am going to be hopeful and try everything I can that we can provide a better story if we align that way. So do you think that would be ready by then as well?
Yeah,
or at a high level, or at a start point, I suppose?
Yes, we are looking at both feasible and affordable as we're developing the work program. So I will be talking to the transport managers about what if there was no increase? What if there was a decrease? What if there was a 1% increase? If NZTA shifted their budget 1% to the South Island, and that's a 20% increase in budget for us, where would you put it in Canterbury? So that we can come back to you with those options based on your guidance today as to what you love, what you'd pull back on, and then you can have that with how we think the money might go as well, and if there was 60 cents in the dollar to baseline, all of that, and we'll come back with some options.
Because the funding for the South Island, especially Canterbury, is absolutely unacceptable, and it cannot happen again.
Absolutely, through Chair, we're happy to bring back that advice as part of the workshops. And it's that you've talked about the 5% previously. It's that shifting that up incrementally
to 12.
To where
we should be doing a campaign to Chris Bishop, make it 12 again. That's not something you can answer, but
we'll bring you back some information around what that actually, like if you went to 12%, what does that actually equate to in a billions of dollars investment level?
I mean, it's not as simple as that, but it's useful to be advocating high. Yeah. Okay. Anything further?
Sometimes at this point in time, in September, we would bring like an itemised rank list of activities, but because we don't have the GPS. Without the GPS, so we would usually bring back a ranked list of activities with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll probably be a slightly higher level than usual to give us more time and be more informed by some of the local, the long-term planning conversations coming into that, because we don't have the GPS. So we're trying to thread the needle with the RLTP, getting informed by some LTP discussions because we don't have that new GPS.
Because a lot of this will feed into ultimately where our respective councils need to start thinking about our LTP investments. Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
It is a tricky.
That's
balance.
it.
Thank you very much.
Is that it for the session?
Yep.
I'm looking for my closing karakia because I couldn't remember it off the top of my head, but I've just done it. So unuhia. Unuhia ki te urutapu nui o tānei, ki wātea, ki māma, te nāka, te tinana, te wairoa e te aratakatu. Koe rā e rongo whakakae rā aka ki a runga. Kia tina, humie, huie, tae ki e. Thank you everybody. Thanks team online.